Hey everyone, and welcome to another Video Wednesday. As most of you guys know, we recently had a reaction video with James Bray.
#BrayGang.
And we had so much fun doing that we decided to do another reaction video.
So today we are taking on a German girl in America. We're coming for you, Felicia. Just kidding, Felicia is really awesome. We watch a ton of her videos, but today she's talking about something really fun that we talk about all the time, so we just had to react to it.
Which school system is better?
Felicia's originally from Munich, which is in Bavaria. I'm originally from Leipzig, which is in Saxony. Both of those states have top-ranking school systems, but I know that they are different. So I'm interested to see in how that factors in.
And I have a personal vested interest in this because I come from a long line of teachers. My grandmother was an elementary school teacher, my mom was an elementary school teacher, and I actually have a certificate to teach English as a foreign language.
And your dad teaches sometimes.
My dad substitute taught.
That's so weird that Americans can just be like, oh, I'm a substitute teacher.
Yeah, that's the thing. Anybody can be a substitute teacher. You don't have to be certified or anything. You just come in and do what the teacher told you to do.
See, okay, this is already definitely a point for Germany, because if we ever had a substitute teacher in any class in Germany, then it would simply just be another teacher from that subject coming in. Like if I needed a substitute for math, another math teacher would come in, not just a substitute teacher.
I actually had my dad substitute for my Spanish class once. The very first thing he said when we all sat down was, "Hello, my name is Mr. Ponte, and yes, that is my son."
Okay, so let's dive on into this video, because I'm interested to see what Felicia has to say.
But before we get into it, just a really quick shout out to our movie, Atomic Eden.
Everett.
Yes?
Did you know that we are the second best-selling action DVD in Germany right now?
Are we?
Yes, and if you did not know that, that means you haven't bought the DVD yet, and you definitely should.
That's right. Atomic Eden, the movie that we met in, is now available on DVD in Germany. So get your copy today.
Link in the description.
German kids get divided into different schools at the age of 10. American kids have to attend the school that's closest to where they live. And are students pushed to go to college after high school in Germany just as much as in the US? These and more questions about the German and the American education system are what I'm going to try and answer in today's video. We'll talk about the good sides, the bad sides, and just what's different between the US and Germany. Disclaimer, it's a lot.
Wait, so the college thing, Germans don't push their kids into college as much as they do in America?
When I was 10 and we were separated into like the classes, about 50% of the kids were pushed into the probably gonna go to college someday. My brother, who's 8 years younger than me, when those kids were separated, it was more like 80%, 20%. So 80% were pushed towards the college.
I think in America, it's more of a personal experience with your family. I think most families, especially if the parents do have degrees, just kind of taught their children like, yeah, that's the next thing you do after high school is you go to college. But I see the shift actually going in the opposite direction because America has a real problem with student debt.
Today, I'm finally taking the time to talk about a topic that all of us had to deal with for a pretty long time in our lives: school and the education system. Both in Germany and the US, the school system is different from state to state, so it's not organized on the federal level. The US has 50 states and Germany has 16 states, so a lot of the things I'll be saying in this video might be different in other parts of the respective country, but I'll try to make it as representative as possible. In both countries, kids usually start first grade around the age of 6. Some might start a little earlier than that, and some a little later. In the US, however, school in that sense starts before first grade, even in kindergarten, which is the year right before first grade. That's why
Okay, so first of all, we have to talk about the fact that you're using a German word, which is kindergarten, and you're literally using it wrong.
Apparently, kindergarten is really preschool or daycare.
It's literally a kindergarten. It is where the kids just grow and flourish. That's not where you learn.
But kindergarten in America is the grade before first grade.
So frustrating.
Americans usually talk about K to 12. We refer to anything from 1st to 13th grade. We don't usually use the word Schule when we're referring to a university or a...
Did she say 13th?
Bavaria, I do believe, has 13 grades. Saxony does not. We have 12.
Oh, wow. So you might graduate high school when you're 19 in Bavaria?
I have several friends that came from out of state and just didn't want to do 13 years, so they went to boarding school in Saxony to be able to cut it down a little bit.
So in the US, kids start kindergarten at the age of 5 usually, and at a lot of schools, kindergarten is actually considered part of elementary school, which usually ends somewhere after 4th or 6th grade.
So did you go to an elementary school that went to 4th or 6th grade?
I don't know any elementary school that goes to 4th grade, so she might be talking about something very specific. There are a lot of places that have the elementary school go to 6th grade. I went to an elementary school that went to 5th grade.
So that's what Texas does.
That's what Texas does.
The high school grades are also usually referred to as freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, so 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Hella jealous of those super cool terms because we just refer to it as numbers.
Oh, really? You guys don't call each other freshmen?
No.
Oh, man.
Well, because we go to, the same school, to high school starting in 5th grade, so that would really be freshmen. You'd have to come up with a lot of names.
Yeah.
So we're just like 5ers or 12ers or like, 9th graders. It's very boring.
And some schools even have a kindergarten graduation ceremony.
I think Americans are obsessed with having kids graduate from things.
Yeah.
Like they'll just be like, praise the Lord, they graduated. Even they made it through kindergarten.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
There's a graduation for 5th grade or 6th grade, depending. And there's a graduation for 8th grade to get into high school. And then there's a graduation for high school, but who cares about that?
No, Germans will be like, either you made it all or you didn't. Like, psh.
After elementary school, German kids get separated into 2 or 3 different school types based on their grades. Hauptschule, or in Bavaria also called Mittelschule,
That's what we call
is
it.
the lowest school type and ends after 9th grade. Realschule is the next highest, which ends after 10th grade, and then there's Gymnasium, which ends after 12th or 13th grade. There have been a few
right,
reforms recently with
Gymnasium.
Gymnasium, and only if you graduate from Gymnasium with a degree called Abitur or Allgemeine Hochschulreife in long, you can attend a university afterwards. Now, most German states have
So you have
actually
an
established
Abitur?
a combined school type that allows students to either get a Hauptschulabschluss or mittlere Reife, like they would at a Realschule. So those states only have 2 different types of schools, the Hauptschule/Realschule type and then the Gymnasium. In Bavaria, we still have the 3 different school types though.
They have added the 10th grade step in the gymnasium style school to just give you the you graduated 10th grade, technically here is a degree that would qualify you to get a job.
Oh, so you also have that 10th grade degree.
Yeah, you get your mittlere Reife even though you are probably primed to still do 11th and 12th grade because that's what you were told to be doing. But just in case you really don't want to do this because maybe you're not enjoying school and you want to do a trade school and you don't need it, then you could stop.
So even though they separate you in 5th grade, there's still the possibility that you may decide later that university is not for you.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody at 10 says to you, oh, well, look, you have good grades, you have to go to university, that doesn't mean that you necessarily want to. What if you want to be, like a nurse? Nurses don't have to go to university. Nursing is a trade school, and that is a super great job. Why not just go to trade school after 10th grade?
For us, 11th and 12th grade, if you were, wanting to use 11th and 12th grade towards your college credits, we would call those AP classes. That would mean that you could, at the end of that year, take a test for that subject. Depending on how well you do in your test, you get a certain amount of credits.
Well, we don't get credits for it, but we qualify.
Right. I mean, clearly it's a different sort of situation. Like if I wanted to go to university in Germany, I'd probably have 0 credits.
Yeah, but so this basically is just okay, you're allowed to even go.
Yeah.
Without it, you're not even allowed to go.
Now, I know that this has already been pretty complicated, but truth is, this is really just the simple breakdown. There are just so many different variations of these systems in the different states, and then there are also things like Förderschulen, for example, that I haven't even mentioned yet. In general, though, most people outside of Germany find it baffling that kids get divided by their academic performance at the age of 9 or 10. And
That's
yes, I
crazy.
agree, it's pretty crazy when you're used to other school systems, and there's actually a lot of pressure for many kids for that reason in 4th grade.
That's what I mean with trade school.
The German school system is pretty old and goes back to the 19th century when things weren't exactly targeted towards everyone going to university. We have a pretty unique system in Germany called Ausbildungen, which can be translated with apprenticeships or vocational training that you need to go through to become a certified professional in a lot of fields. An Ausbildung lasts 2.5 to 3 years, and even though you also attend a school during that time, Berufsschule, so like a vocational school, you mainly work at a company or business where you're basically being trained on the job. And then at the end, you'll have to take theoretical and practical exams to get your Gesellen certification.
Okay, so you're like nodding your head at all of this, like, yeah, this is normal, and I'm spinning. Like my head is spinning, trying to figure out, like, I have no idea what she's talking about. Like it's gone too far. Like there's so many separations and like just, dude, keep it simple, man.
Well, that's simply just not how it works. I know that in America, like a lot of jobs that I would consider trade jobs do still kind of require college.
Nursing, I would
Yes.
expect to require some college.
And my mom is a nurse, so I kind of know that from experience. In America, you pay to go to college to just learn theoretically about nursing, and then you hope and pray that you can work at a hospital, and there's different levels of nursing and whatnot. But in Germany, if you're 16 and you graduate at 10th grade, you can apply at a hospital and they will take you in as a training nurse. You will have schooling and working at the hospital at the same time. You'll get paid while you're training because you are doing some work. And then that hospital, because they invested in you getting trained, will also very likely give you that job.
The numbers have changed a little in the past decade, with the number of college students for the first time ever being higher than the number of Auszubildende, apprentices. In 2012, there were about 2 million apprentices in Germany versus 2.5 million college students.
Wow.
Jobs like hairdressers, nurses, car mechanics, accountants, electricians, bakers, or wholesalers are all professions that require an apprenticeship certificate in Germany, but the list is endless, really. Now, what if you're not good at school when you're 10, but you do want to go to university later on because you want to become a doctor or lawyer? Can you still go? Yes, there are different ways to do that. First of all, you can technically work your way up within the different school systems, but it's not really something that the school system focuses on, so it's not very common, and there are a lot of obstacles to overcome, such as having to learn another language that wasn't part of your curriculum at the lower school.
So most people that go through the gymnasium have to learn a foreign language?
Everybody has to learn English in Germany, and that starts in elementary school. That can start as early as first grade or even preschool. In a gymnasium, I had to learn Latin.
You didn't have to learn Latin, you chose to learn Latin. But in other words, you have to learn another language other than English.
Okay, I had to learn Latin to get a free ride. But I had to learn Latin, and I had to learn Spanish.
How did that go?
Oh, bueno.
At those schools, students will attend another 2 years to obtain a so-called Fachabitur, a subject-linked Abitur, which allows them to study at Fachhochschulen, which are universities that offer degrees in more hands-on fields than general universities do.
So this is just a more specified way of doing an 11th and 12th grade.
Because you're in a school that stops at 10th.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to go to another school that continues on to 11th and 12th. You would just go to something, Fachhochschule, Fachoberschule, which just does those 2 years. When you graduate from there, you can go to university.
But a university more geared towards what you already did your 2 years in.
Sure, sure.
Long story short, there are a lot of ways and options that, again, differ from state to state, but even though it's possible to change your path after elementary school, it does come with a lot of thresholds for people usually.
Wow.
It's hard.
So that's just...
So as you
Such
could
a
probably tell,
big
I
step in fifth
personally
grade.
definitely think that this system comes with some flaws and disadvantages. Kids experience a lot of pressure at a pretty young age, and once you're in one of the school levels, you might get comfortable and might not really have a lot of internal motivation to put in the effort to work your way up, even if a higher school level would be a better fit for you. On the other hand, the German system also has some major advantages though. For example, that kids aren't forced to be in school for 12 years if it's just not something they're good at or interested in. For some kids, it's just a lot more profitable mentally and professionally to start working earlier in life rather than feeling like they need to try and go to college, which is the main narrative in the US.
That's funny because in America, even if you are going to regular high school, you can start working at age 16. So most people I knew who were in 11th and 12th grade had a job.
Yeah, but that was a side job. You can have a side job in Germany as well, but
While you're going to school?
yeah, but you probably wouldn't if your main goal is to be a doctor. You're gonna mostly study. School is free, university is free. What are you making money for?
My high school job was working for SeaWorld.
And are you still with SeaWorld?
I could have been. I really wanted to be an animal trainer. That was like really enticing to swim with the animals. That would have been awesome.
I would say one pro that Felicia doesn't mention is that I do think it does give teachers a little bit more way to focus on the level of the students that they're working with.
In America, we have something similar. We don't send kids to a different school. We just have different classes. So starting in middle school, you could have an honors class or a regular class. The honors class were the ones that moved faster, and the regular class were the ones that were slower for the kids that really didn't care.
Does that maybe provide a little bit of room for bullying?
Some of us in the honors classes did get bullied, but they weren't in our class. They would bully us in recess or lunch.
But you're in the same building, you can get bullied in recess or lunch. When in Germany, if you're separated, you go to completely different schools. You'll never see each other again.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Both public K-12 school and university are free, and the only thing that matters is your academic performance. That's how it's supposed to be, at least. Now, in reality, of course, your socioeconomic background does affect your academic performance too in a lot of cases, especially at a young age.
But that's the same in America too. Socioeconomic status affects your education no matter what. Like if it's Germany or US, it's the same.
And that, in my opinion, is a big flaw of the German education system. I personally think that the whole system should be a lot more flexible and allow people to switch between the different levels more easily, and also actually encourage them to do so.
Yeah, that's, because it's dizzying.
Now, in the US, this is handled differently.
dizzying
All
if you were
kids attend the
switching.
same type of school, even though money does play a role as to whether you attend a public or a private school, of course. But besides that, there is no dividing kids into different school levels. However, within the school, there are usually 2 to 3 different levels for each class, and depending on your performance, you'll be able to go into a higher or lower level for each subject, which I personally find a much better way to solve this overall.
Let's say in math, you're being put in, oh, you're not that good in math. You're in low-level math class. How are you ever going to get out of that? For the rest of your life, you're going to be in low-level math class.
No, like I said, when I was in low-level math class, at a certain, for me it was science. At a certain point, the teachers were like, yeah, you're too advanced. You're going to need to go to honors next year.
Yeah, but that was because you happen to just come in from out of state and you happen to be good at sciences. But if you literally are struggling with math, then you're going to the easier math class. How are you ever going to be like too smart for your lower level math class? You're going to go to 7th grade and you're still only going to be lower level 7th grade math. And then you're going to be lower level 8th grade math.
I'm not sure that's how it, is perceived. It's not lower level, it's just to your pace.
Is there an end goal to this is how much math you have to know in high school? And do all students get to that exact point? Or do
Yes.
some students go past that point?
Yes.
Or do some students not even reach that point?
Yes.
See, yes is
yes.
not the right answer.
No, but yes is the right answer to all of that. So, for example, technically your math can stop at 10th grade. At least that's what it was for me because, curriculums change. It's been several years, just a few.
Practically yesterday.
You may still be required to take a math class in 11th and 12th grade, but if you didn't want to do those advanced ones, you would just take regular math.
But then you'll end up basically with the same result. If everybody who isn't that good in subjects just always takes the lowest required classes, they'll end up with, the 9th or 10th grade required classes that they had to do. That's a Realschulabschluss, and people that are more advanced or more willing to learn or whatever, more able, they'll end up with a 12th grade degree. It's just they went to the same school.
Basically, your diploma that you get in 10th grade equals a high school diploma in America. That's what you're saying.
Yes. What's always been baffling to me is that at the end of 12th grade, American students graduate high school just by finishing the school year. So if they pass 12th grade, they receive a high school diploma. In Germany, you have to take pretty big final exams to graduate. They're really important exams in all school types, but especially the Abitur exams in Gymnasium are considered the most important exams of your life for many people, and they make a major part of your final grade, which is crucial to get accepted to certain university programs.
Wait, did you not know this?
So in order to get your degree in Germany, you have to pass tests.
Yes.
That's interesting because if you don't finish high school and don't get that diploma in high school, you can get a high school equivalency. It's called a GED, and that you have to take a test for.
Yes.
So you can take classes to prep you for that test, but when you pass that test, you essentially have a high school diploma.
But so in Germany, if you do end up wanting to go into college, your college is going to look at your grade. It's actually easy to enroll into a college, but it's not easy to get into the class that you want to get into, especially if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer. Most of those will say your GDP is going to have to be a 1.0 or a 1.2. Anything worse than that, you're not getting in.
GDP, yeah.
GDP. That's
Grade.
what I think. Point average. GPA.
GPA.
Your GDP is your country.
Gross domestic product is the GDP.
At the end of 12th grade, you have final exams in your 3 major subjects, in my case, and 1 additional subject, which in my case was math. You have really, really long exams. Those are 1 day for each subject. You sit there for 5 hours straight. You have to answer all of them. You bring all the snacks because you're not allowed to leave. It's stressful, and boy, do you not want to be sick on those days.
And you don't have these tests if you're graduating from 10th grade?
I think they're a little bit less crazy. I don't think they're 5-hour tests.
So you have to take tests to earn your high school degree,
Yes.
and then you have to take harder tests to get into university. It's not that the tests determine whether you get in like an SAT, or it's not a placement exam. It's just going to affect your GPA.
So if you, let's say, for all 4 semesters, all you get is 1s and you're amazing, and that one day you just have a complete blackout and you suck, that could ruin your GPA, and now you can't be a doctor.
So if you screw up your test, you'll screw up your GPA, even if your GPA was great all the way through.
It could suck. But you can take
They're
SAT
private
several times,
standardized tests
Yes.
that cost around $100. Many schools pay
I took
for
it
them,
twice and
though,
got the exact
but
same score,
they're
so.
separate
And
from
you
your
were like,
high
"Eh,
school grade.
must be accurate."
And you can technically retake them as many times as you want, which is not the case for the German final exams. In some American
Oh, that's
states,
it?
students
One shot
do
and
have
that's
to
it?
pass so
The only thing you can do is you can literally fail and repeat your 12th grade.
That's almost like in Korea. In Korea, they actually have one test that determines the rest of your life. And on this day, traffic shuts down. The airports have to reroute planes because it is supposed to be quiet, and we're supposed to provide an environment for these students to be able to take that test. So the high schools shut everything down around them. It's an incredible day.
Currently, it's about 9% of the German K-12 schools that are private, but they're becoming more popular every year. From my personal experience, though, going to a public school really is the standard in Germany. They're free and they're considered to provide quality education all over the country. So it's not necessarily like in the US, where in a lot of regions, public schools have a pretty bad reputation and only private schools are considered the good ones.
And the other thing about private schools in America is that because they're private and they require a tuition, the teachers get paid better. And so they tend to soak up all the best teachers, which goes to show that our public school system is way underfunded.
Teaching is actually a pretty well-paid profession in Germany. I mean, teachers in Germany drive decent cars, and in America, I know teachers can't afford like pencils.
Around when we first met, I was like, my dream car is like a BMW. And she was like, BMW? That's what teachers drive. And I was like,
That's what teachers do.
what? What? Teachers can't afford a BMW? Our teachers drive Volvos.
I wonder what she's gonna say about boarding school. I did go to boarding school. It was not a private school. It's a public school. It just had, from tradition, a boarding school aspect to it, and I did board.
In the US, 25% of all K-12 schools are private, which means that they're funded through tuition and donations. And the average tuition for private schools in the US goes from around $5,000 to like $20,000 a year. In Germany, even private schools aren't.
Okay, speaking from Los Angeles experience, that's not true. First of all, we probably have 50% private schools, and second of all, tuition can cost a lot more than that.
50 grand.
50 a year, for sure.
Wow.
Now, going back to the US, the vast majority of private schools are actually religious schools here, 78% to be precise. What's interesting about this is that while in the US, it's only the religious schools that have religion classes, we actually have religion classes at all public schools in Germany. In the US, that would be against the principle of separation of state and church, which is a lot more prevalent here than it is in Germany.
What? There were Catholic classes provided at your school?
Okay, no, so I'm from Saxony and we do not have Catholics. So my school offered Protestant religion classes, but as an alternative, you can take ethics classes, and that is a completely fair choice and essentially the same. If you are a Catholic, you can opt out of both and take Catholic religion classes at your local church, and those credits count. If you chose ethics, they'll probably go at it from a completely neutral perspective. If you're Catholic, they'll talk about all the religions from a Catholic point of view. If you're a Protestant, they'll talk about it from a Protestant point of view.
Wow.
Now, so here's a fun fact. I grew up as atheist as they come, but I did go to Protestant religious class my entire life.
Really?
I could have switched any year ever, but I chose religion all the way to 12th grade because that's an easy A. You really can't go wrong. The answer is always God.
I'm pretty sure that I had 2 or 3 periods of religion class per week from elementary school all the way up to 12th grade, which I will say is way too much in my opinion.
I think I had one each week, and I think that's plenty.
In Germany, kids are legally required to attend an actual school, whereas in the US, homeschooling is a lawful alternative that parents can consider as well. So even though the US does have compulsory education laws, they're not compulsory schooling. Now, how is the school system set up within the US? Many things are regulated on the state levels, just like in Germany, but below that there are school districts. Even the non-Americans among you might have heard of families picking their new home based on which school districts are the best, or you might have also heard about redlining in a political context.
It is absolutely true that when you have a family in America, you will decide where you live based on that school district. It's absolutely true. My parents made sure that we went to Northside School District because it was a good school district in San Antonio.
In Germany, I think the only school that's sort of decided by where you live is your elementary school. You'll probably just go to the school that's really close by because you'll want to walk or you'll want to take the bus to it. But after that, you can more or less choose which school to go to, and I chose a school that was not the closest to where I lived.
Yeah, the only way to go to a school that's not in your district is if you went to a private school, so you're paying. So then, yeah, I had neighbors that would have their kids be going to a school downtown San Antonio because it was a very nice private school down there. And when a new school gets built, everything gets redistricted. So my brother, for example, went to a different high school than I did.
Weird.
The funding of public schools in the US typically consists of 13% coming from the federal government, 43% coming from the states, and 44%, so the majority, coming from local governments. The local governments, on the other hand, rely mostly on property taxes to support public education, which means that property-rich areas tend to collect more in property taxes, and therefore schools that are located in wealthier areas usually get more money than schools that are located in poorer school districts. In Germany, schools are run and funded by the general regional entities, which, as I've mentioned, are usually the states of Germany or the municipalities. School districts in the meaning of distinct legal entities do not exist in Germany, and with that there's also no regulation as to which public school students have to attend after elementary school. Which is why starting in 5th grade, you'll see a lot of German kids take public transportation all over the place to get to and back from school, or they just take their bike like I did every day. We don't really have school buses like they exist in the US, and kids are a lot more independent in Germany in that regard.
Since I've met her, Josie's told me a little bit about the school system in Germany, but this has made my head spin. So she gave me a lot more information that Josie's like, oh yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, that's true. And I'm like, what?
I think there's gonna be a part 2.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna do this again with her because this is very fascinating subject.
Let us know if you guys thought this was interesting and if you guys have any more questions that Felicia didn't answer or that we didn't answer, because then we'll react to her second video and we'll answer your questions. Oh, you got rid of your war paint. You're not on a warpath with Felicia anymore?
I don't know why you wanted to be on a warpath with Felicia.
I really wasn't. We
Just because she's Bavarian?
Yes! No, we just had
Yeah.
ashes. We had ashes, so I had to.
That's right. These ashes came from a scene that we just shot, which will be coming out in our new show. So we know that the past couple of weeks we haven't had our regular scheduled programming about Josie. It's mostly because I've been working on the student films for my class that I teach.
Now that the pandemic is over, we want to expand our focus of our show a little bit. So our new show will be new and exciting and fresh and fun, and it will be premiering on June 11th.
Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, please like, and don't forget to join our Patreon family to see exclusive videos that we present for them.
And you'll be getting sent a very new song. Say bye, Everett.
Bye, Everett. Tschüss.